Hey, what's up guys? Alex here with a new video, and today I want to do my first impressions on the new GFX100 Mark II. If you're new to the channel, I am a portrait photographer based out of Miami, Florida, and I primarily shoot with Sony and Leica. I've had this camera now for about 2 weeks, and I've shot it in a variety of situations. I've done a portrait session, a little bit of street photography, and I actually took the camera with me to Disney World, and I want to show you those images today. Throughout the video, I'll be playing these images for you to check out, but more importantly, I am providing these raw files for you to download so you can play with the files and see how juicy and incredible these medium format images truly are. For today's video, I'm going to focus on a few things: image quality, autofocus, and the new redesigned body. With that said, let's kick things off and talk about image quality. So this camera is, no surprise, just incredible when it comes down to image quality. The medium format files you get with a 100 megapixel sensor is just detail for days. I took this camera out to do some street photography with my buddy Gaston, also located here in Miami. I'll provide his YouTube channel down below. And the first time he saw these files, he was just absolutely floored at the amount of detail. And that's what's great about medium format. You really kind of get three benefits. You get incredible resolution, and we're talking about 100 megapixels. You can zoom in into somebody's soul. That's how much you can zoom into these files and pixel peep. But those 100 megapixels really also give you the ability to create multiple compositions out of one image. So it really gives you a lot of flexibility. You also get improved dynamic range. Kind of like you do going from APS-C to full frame, you get all those benefits going from full frame to medium format. So even better dynamic range than what you're used to on your full frame setup. And I think lastly, you get compression. So I think that's the most important part when looking at the medium format setup. All the images you're gonna see today are mostly from the 55mm f1.7. Now that lens has a compression and the look of a 55mm lens with the field of view of a 44mm lens. So you're getting a wider perspective, but the compression of a tighter lens. And that's also a massive benefit of medium format and where you get the medium format look. But going back to the camera, the image quality is just stunning. Now, one thing I want to set straight and set the right expectations. If you're coming from the GFX100 or the 100S, the difference is going to be close to impossible to notice. Fuji advertised an extra stop and dynamic range. I personally don't see it. Again, it could be very minor in very specific situations, but the image quality is just not a massive jump. You do now have a base ISO of 80, which again gives you cleaner images. But if you're coming from the 100 or the 100S and you're thinking about upgrading just for image quality, I personally would not do it. Now, for the other features we're going to talk about in this video, that makes the upgrade justified, but for image quality, don't expect anything different. Now, it's a great transition to go over the new autofocus. So Fuji really kind of advertised a new autofocusing system and the ability to shoot better quality video. I'm not going to necessarily cover video too much, but I will say if you want to check out the video quality of this camera, check out my previous 2 YouTube videos. They were both shot with the GFX and the 55 1.7 wide open, and it tracked me and had me in focus the entire time. So that was great to see. The autofocus here is a huge improvement from the 100 and 100S. It feels snappier, and when it feels snappier, it just gives you more confidence that it's actually nailing focus. While using the camera, it nailed the eye every single time in my portrait sessions, and even when the subject was moving a little bit, the camera had no issues. I only noticed the autofocus kind of fail a little bit when the subject was walking towards the camera. And now that could be a variety of things. It could be the firmware. It could also be the fact that, medium format, you have bigger lenses, a lot more glass. Having a subject come to the camera, it just requires so much more. With that said though, it still nailed about 80% of the shot. So it's definitely improved and can track confidently now. Just don't expect blazing performance out of this camera when it comes down to tracking subjects. Is it a massive improvement from the previous generation? I actually think it is. So this is the first time using a medium format camera feels like a modern day mirrorless camera. I would say this camera probably is slightly behind in performance to a Sony a7 III when it comes down to autofocusing, which means you're getting mirrorless full frame performance now on a medium format kit. And that's pretty incredible. So to wrap up autofocus, it's definitely an improvement. You definitely feel it. And it does almost justify an upgrade if you are shooting moving subjects. Now, as far as build quality and the new body, now I gotta say, Fuji knocked it out of the park here. The new build and the new body and the new angular design, it's modern. And look, I'm into cameras. I think it's personally super sexy. It looks great. And I love the new pattern. Everything about the camera, I think, is just very, very appealing. My only complaint, and this is just a Fuji thing, I wish it had 3 command wheels. I personally don't like changing the aperture from the lens itself. I like using the front command wheel for aperture, the back one for shutter speed, and then the third one for ISO. It doesn't have a third one, so you can't do that. That's just a me thing though. I think if Fuji added that, this body is absolutely perfect. Slightly larger than a full frame camera, but I mean, really not noticeable if you're comparing it to like a Nikon Z8 or even a bigger mirrorless body like a Nikon Z9. Another thing to mention, battery life is not the greatest. If you're gonna be using this camera, I would recommend buying 2 or 3 batteries. Every time I took this camera out, within an hour and a half, I was already at 50%, and it's just a battery hog. But I'm not mad about it, and here's why. The EVF on this camera is the best EVF I have ever used, period. It is incredible. It's like looking at a massive TV screen in your eye. So normally EVFs are like a 0.7 magnification. This camera goes up to a 0.1, it's actually a 1x magnification. I don't know how to say it. It's a massive EVF and it just blows you away when you put your eye in it. Now, I don't like using the EVF. If you see my previous videos, call me an amateur, whatever you want to call me, I don't like the EVF. I usually like using the screen on my cameras. This is the first camera where I primarily use the EVF because it was just that gorgeous. Best EVF period on any camera. Quote me on that. Incredible. So, back to it all. Who's this camera for? If you need 100 megapixels, you know who you are. I think this camera is definitely for a smaller market. Would I recommend this to a wedding photographer or a portrait photographer? It's actually not my call. It's kind of hard to say. You know if you need 100 megapixels, you know if you want or need that detail. The files are incredible. The files are large. The files will slow down your computer if you don't have a powerful enough computer. But what you get in return is just some of the crispest files you will ever see. If your clients are demanding more resolution, more detail, they're paying for it, then it's justified. I think what this camera does though, where it's truly a game changer, is what it does to the previous generation medium format cameras. So prior to this camera coming out, the GFX100 II retailed for $5,500. And just this morning, I found a used one on Facebook Marketplace for $3,700. I found a used 50S for under $3,000, which means you can now get a used medium format camera for the price of a full frame camera. 15 years ago when I started photography, I think the cheapest medium format camera was like $50,000 or $100,000. I couldn't even dream of touching one. And now that this camera is out and is just driving the price down on the previous models of Fuji's, the fact that you can get a medium format camera cheaper than a full frame camera, you can get 100 megapixels cheaper than a full frame camera. It's just mind blowing. So where I think this camera starts changing the game is with the previous models, now more photographers have access to shooting medium format. And that is a game changer. Getting people to use these cameras and use them as tools, getting them in more hands, that's where you really start creating change and creating the standard. And I can't wait to see what these creators do with a 100S, with a 50S, now that it's gonna be cheaper to access. So I'm really excited for what this is doing to the market and what's gonna happen in the next few years. I hope more people, more companies get into the game and start creating more medium format cameras. But what do you guys think? Like I mentioned, I'm including files for you to download. Please download them, check them out. Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. And as always, if you like this video, hit the like button, hit subscribe if you wanna see more content, and I will see you on the next one. Have a good one, guys. Peace.